Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the TCT Podcaster on YouTube. My name is Gavin Campbell. Alongside me, as always, my two good friends, Tyson Snyder and Cale Fleming. If I sound a little different, it's because I'm a little sick, sore throat and whatnot. So if I sound like I'm dying, just disregard that. I'm just gonna continue with what we got going on today. We got a lot to get through. Speaking of which, we're gonna start off with University of Illinois football defeating the Rutgers Scarlet Knights 38-17 over the weekend to move to 3-2 on the season. Then we got to get into some NFL games, recap Sunday, and then highlight the Monday Night Football game tonight, which it is October 8th. I believe it's the Saints and Redskins, right? Then we're going to move on to the Milwaukee Brewers and the MLB playoffs as they completed their sweep of the Colorado Rockies. And then we're going to also talk about the Central Illinois High School football games, Week 7 recap. It was a rough week for everybody, but mostly me, and we'll get into that later. But moving on, we also have to talk about the NBA and a couple significant injuries for some Western Conference teams. One of them supposedly a playoff team this year, and some people don't think they are. That's the San Antonio Spurs. Again, we'll get into that later. And we're going to wrap it up with the NHL and Cale's top three stars, of the week. And with that said, let's go ahead and take it back up to the top here, boys. The University of Illinois Fighting Illini, like I said earlier, defeated Rutgers. Rutgers has been, let's be honest, a pretty terrible program the past few years. We all expected them to win this game.
Beat us last year in Champaign.
Sure and did. Illinois has also been a poor football program over the past few years. But with that said, it was their first Big Ten win in over 700 days. Thank you, Cale, for that fact. There's a lot going on with this team. I just want to know your guys' takeaways from it.
It's been 1,400 days since we have won two Big Ten games back-to-back.
Well, with Purdue coming up, we have a chance to do that then.
This week against Purdue, we'll talk about it Friday. But no, it's Saturday. It's a good win. We had 3 takeaways on defense, 3 picks against the leader of interceptions in the FBS, I believe, in Art Sikowski at Rutgers.
He's got to be close if he's not on top. He's now sitting at 11.
So, yeah, he has to be on top. But, he's a freshman quarterback. Rutgers now is dealing with what we were dealing with last year, except this is all coming in Chris Ash, I believe his name is. It's coming in his 3rd season. So it's kind of tough for Rutgers. I feel bad for Rutgers fans because we went through this last year, and we're still not quite out of the woods yet. But, no, we saw significant improvements coming off of our bye week. 38-17 was the score. A couple key guys. A.J. Bush got the start over M.J. Rivers, who is not hurt. He is just sidelined for yesterday. They wanted to give Bush the opportunity since M.J.'s gotten the last 2. But yesterday, Saturday, was 10 for 18, 89 yards, 1 touchdown. But this is the most interesting stat to me. Rushing on the ground, he had 18 total carries for 116 yards with 2 touchdowns. That's pretty amazing to me, but also tells me that our offensive line is collapsing, not giving Bush enough time in the pocket.
Well, a lot of those are designed runs, quarterback draws, things like that they actually want him to carry the ball because he's a mobile quarterback. But yeah, all 18 of those, there's no way that they were all designed runs or all meant for him to run. Half of those, at least, were probably either the pocket broke down or he just decided he didn't want to throw it. So, yeah, the offensive line still looking a little skeptical. He could definitely use a little bit more time. Only throwing the ball 18 times, like I said, a couple of those he decided that he just didn't want to throw it and ran it instead. But only 18 pass attempts isn't very much for an entire game, especially at the college level. They're out. A lot of these teams are out here letting it fly. I mean, Sikowski threw 46 times in that game.
Yeah.
So I would like to see the quarterback throw a little bit more, use a little bit more of our team instead of it being kind of a one-man show. That being said, it still wasn't a one-man show because Reggie Corbin went for 137 yards on 11 carries. Like I said, that guy's been a stud week in and week out. But I would like to see Bush throw it a little bit more, maybe spread the love around a little bit, give some of these other guys some confidence. I'm still a little baffled that he was in the game. I thought for sure it would have been Rivers again. I don't really know why they pulled him besides to give A.J. Bush that shot again, but I don't know. I feel like we could have put up a lot more with Rivers in the game throwing it instead of Bush tucking it.
Well, that's been proven. He proved that against Penn State. The amount of yards that he was able to get in the air. against a top 10 defense was pretty remarkable in MJ Rivers being a true freshman. So I agree with you 100% on that. I feel like A.J. Bush needs to stay on the sideline, in my honest opinion, and give MJ Rivers, a true freshman, a guy who could potentially lead this team for 4 years out on the field.
I'm glad you brought that up because what's really concerning to me and the thing that sticks out the most, in my opinion, is A.J. Bush couldn't even throw for 100 yards against this Rutgers defense,
yes,
which is atrocious.
Yep.
And I'm glad you brought up that Penn State game because MJ Rivers absolutely picked them apart, and this is a top 10 team in the nation, arguable top 15 for sure. What they were able to do in that game and even getting 24 points on the board was nothing short of phenomenal. The fact that they only got 38, I know 38 points is a lot, and I know that we sort of disagreed with this off air, but I feel Illinois should have put at least 40 on this team. I know they were close, but I was definitely expecting 45, 48 points out of this game. I don't understand why Levy went with A.J. Bush, especially after the kind of potential that MJ Rivers has shown, and I really hope he decides to sway in MJ's direction next week against Purdue.
I want to talk about defense real quick. Jake Hansen, Saturday afternoon.
Finally back to the top of the tackle leaderboards.
Absolutely. 9 tackles with 6 being solos. So congrats to him. He got Player of the Week for Lovie Smith on the defensive end, only player to get Player of the Week, although on offense there's a whole slew of guys. But I want to talk about something real quick. Illinois did not have a single sack on Saturday. I did notice that when they were bringing a pass rush, they were bringing 4 guys on the actual pass rush to the Rutgers offensive line, who either had 5 or 6 guys down on the line at one time. This Illinois team is not good enough to only bring a 4-man pass rush.
That's basic math. 5 is greater than 4.
Yes.
It's hard to get to the quarterback if you don't have enough guys getting there.
Unless
I'm going to touch on this later when we get to the NFL side
Right.
of things, but 5 is greater than 4. It's that simple.
I'm just kind of confused as to why our defensive coordinator, I can't remember his name right now, for the life of me. Sorry, I'm really tired today, ladies and gentlemen, and Gavin. But no, I just don't understand why we won't bring a 5 or 6-man pass rush. I don't understand that because, like I just said, the Illini are not good enough to bring a 4-man pass rush. We don't have anybody up there besides maybe Bobby Roundtree who can actually break through 5 guys on the offensive line and find a hole, find a weak spot, a seam somewhere. I feel like on the pass rush we need to do it more with more guys. I don't understand why we don't.
Well, this has been Lovie Smith's tactics ever since the NFL. 4-man pass rush is what he's always done. He's been doing it for 20 years. So when he came to the college level, did you really think anything else was going to change? This is what he does. What I do think
he needs to change it.
Exactly. What I do agree with you about is I would like to see more blitzes, more stunts, more anything. Just more guys going and attacking the quarterback, attacking the football, getting in the backfield, disrupting anything that they can. Because I'm agreeing with everything that you say. Our secondary not good enough. Our linebackers as a whole unit not good enough to cover any kind of pass attempt. And we already know if the other team runs on Illinois and they get 5 yards deep down the field, we're not going to catch them. There's been too many plays this season of 15-plus yards on the ground of other teams running against us. And I think pressure would solve a lot of those issues because – no, go ahead.
I'm banking off of the fact, too, with pressure. That being said, you're going to force that quarterback to make a play. Now, the quarterback at Wisconsin, Ohio State, or Michigan State, those guys will make plays under that pressure. I understand that. But you're forcing that quarterback to make a play under pressure where possibly he could make a mistake. Now, these ranked teams such as Ohio State, Michigan State, who lost to Northwestern, and Michigan, who almost lost to Northwestern, you're going to force these guys to make plays. So that's just kind of where I'm getting at because they're still college kids. They're still in their 18, 19, 20 years old. Make them make a play on the big stage. Make them mess up. That's all I got to say about it.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and finish up with this. University of Illinois lost a commit this week in wide receiver Bryce Childress. Cale, how big is this for Illinois losing out on this guy?
So Bryce Childress, honestly, it hurts. It stings for the Liddyville movement that we see on Twitter everywhere. Liddyville shirts. It's a big loss. I don't want to say a tremendously big loss, but it's a big loss. It does sting.
He's not Beeson.
He's not Marquez Beeson. He's not Isaiah Williams. He's not, Washington, Casey Washington or Shimon Cooper. So that being said, there's a little bit of speculation I heard on the radio this morning saying that maybe he didn't possibly feel the love or the warmth from the Liddyville movement as such guys like Marquez Beeson or Isaiah Williams. And that's possibly kind of swayed his commitment a little bit and forced him to decommit. Now, the thing that I didn't agree with is I understand he's a 17-year-old kid. A little bit of emotion is going to play into it. It's just how it goes. He committed in the first 5 minutes of the Rutgers game, so maybe he was watching the game in that first half and was like, "Oh, geez, I don't know if I want to play here." But no, it's not a big loss. It does hurt because he is a 3-star wide receiver. He is on the smaller end, but he can power through guys and he can overpower them. So as of right now, his top. The school that's recruiting him the hardest as of right now is the University of Toledo, I understand. So there isn't a 100% loss on Bryce Childress yet, but it's not looking good. I feel like, though, Isaiah Williams could possibly sway him here still. So I don't know. It's not that big of a loss, but it does sting a little bit.
Well, and he was just a verbal commitment, right?
Yeah,
there's nothing signed.
Yet.
So it's not like he's saying he's still not coming here, but he might when it comes actual signing time.
Absolutely. But yeah, so on Childress, hopefully we'll just have to see what happens. Hopefully we don't lose any more. I don't think we will. He was just kind of swaying his options back and forth. But I want to transition now into the NFL weekend, Week 5. We still got one game tonight, as we stated earlier, with the Saints and the Redskins. Drew Brees going to break more records tonight. But I want to talk first about the Texans in Dallas and the Texas Bowl, Tyson. 19-16, I did watch the second half of that game because I was watching the Hawks game. Who's to blame for the loss? Zeke carried the ball 20 times. He only had, less than 100 rushing yards.
54.
So he had 54 rushing yards. They kind of shut Zeke down last night, but he does have to bust through that line, including Jadeveon Clowney.
Jadeveon Clowney, J.J. Watt,
Yeah.
two of the fiercest ends in the league. Yeah.
So we had to go against one of the trio of the toughest.
Well, they've got an incredible
line.
defense, too, with Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, in the back end, and they've got a Kevon. I can't remember the other
I'll look it up
safety's
while you're
name.
talking about it. I'll fact check it.
But they've got a really decent defense, and they absolutely did shut Zeke down. But once again, I'm blaming the loss on play calling in this. Most of Zeke's runs were stretch plays from the shotgun, which I don't talk a whole lot about actual play calling, but I hate stretch plays, meaning that they're so slow to get the ball in the running back's hands. I don't disagree with running from the shotgun. It's a good switch up every now and then. But I want to say 14 of his 20 handoffs came from the shotgun position. And it just takes too long to get the ball in his hands. And it doesn't let him see the field enough. And the other ones were straight up the middle. 1 hole, 0 hole, 2 hole. There's not really a whole lot to go from in there. You need to run bellies. You need to run, hell, even pitch it to him. But once again, the play calling to me was just spotty. They weren't giving it to him to where he could make things happen. And when they finally did start making it happen, he could run to the outside a little bit, make a cut, make a jump. He got 6 yards, and then he got 12 yards, and then he ran another one for 19 yards, and it got called back by holding, and that just absolutely shut it down. So Zeke had a rough game, but a lot of this, I think, goes back to the play calling. And I don't know. I don't want to say they put too much on his shoulders because they passed him the ball about 10 times too. But I think he can absolutely handle that load. But the way they're getting him the load just isn't working out. It's not his game. It's not the game that the Cowboys need to be running.
I think what stuck out the most for me in this game is when the Texans decided to shut Zeke down, the Cowboys didn't know what to do. I saw that they tried to put it in the hands of Prescott, and it's no disrespect to Dak because I really like him. I think he's got potential. But just so far this season, I haven't really seen it. And I think, and I might get burned for this in the comments, but I think it's the absence of Dez Bryant that we're starting to see, and it's hurting him a lot. I understand that the controversy was there, and he had a colorful personality. I'll put it that way. He had his own issues to deal with. But when you got guys out there like Thompson, Beasley, Austin, I mean, these guys all under 6 feet tall. You need a big body receiver that you can go to, and I understand Terrence Williams can be that guy, but he's not.
Terrence Williams still is only 5'11".
Yeah, I'm saying the closest thing to
right.
6 foot as we can get. Dez 6'3", 6'4". He's a big guy, big body that you can throw to, and right now you're not seeing it. Even Allen Hurns coming over from Jacksonville, he's still not that guy. He's a smaller receiver. I just think all these guys that are meant to be number 2 and number 3s, and he doesn't have that one consistent guy that he can go to. Dez was always there, and I don't want to say to bail him out, but he was always there to make a play when the Cowboys needed it. And I think this is the game that we see that they're finally starting to miss him. And going back to a few episodes ago when we talked about Dez possibly re-signing with the Cowboys, we know that he was in talks with them.
Jerry Jones came out and said that's not in the best interest for either party.
Right.
Which I think it could be of interest to the Cowboys, and I think Dez would love it too. But yeah.
And that's exactly what I was alluding to was I think now when you look back on it, especially with this division being as tight as it is, they have the same record as the defending champs in the Eagles. The Redskins, they're only half a game up now.
They're 2-1, and they play tonight against a tough Saints team.
Right, so if New Orleans is able to take this, they'll all have the same record for the division. The Giants, we know who New York is right now. Mm-hmm. It's kind of turning into a dumpster fire, especially after that collapse against the Carolina Panthers over the weekend.
What a kick, though. 63 yards. He's tied for second in the league for the record, longest kick.
Yeah, shout out to Graham Gano. That was a hell of a kick. And shout out to Cam Newton for giving him credit where credit's due. But no, I just think the Cowboys are really missing their star receiver right now, and Jason Witten on top of that.
Well, yeah, we got rid of and had basically all our seniors retire or quit, get fired. And I think you hit it on the head perfectly. We saw it in that game. It's the exact ideation of what we're missing without Dez. In the red zone, we drove to the red zone, got to the 4-yard line or something to start the game yesterday, and had to kick a field goal. Dez Bryant, from the time he entered the league to the time he lost his job, he has the most touchdowns in the red zone. He has the most touchdowns, period, over that time span, more than anyone else in the league, because he's got such a big frame. He can jump so high. He's got such good hands. And I think you're exactly right. They're really starting to miss him. We kicked 3 field goals yesterday and only got 1 touchdown. So it's just the fact that they haven't been able to put up points because they haven't had anybody to get it to. Now, they do have 3 very big tight ends. Rico Gathers, 6'8", played power forward in college. Big hands, big body. But they won't put him in the red zone. I couldn't really tell you why. They got Jeff Swaim, who caught 3 balls for 55 yards, who another big body guy, agile. He's their number 1 tight end, but they won't throw to him in the red zone. Couldn't tell you why. And then they got Blake Jarwin, played at Oklahoma State, second string tight end. They like to pair him up with Jeff Swaim, do that double tight, and they still won't throw it to a tight end. Those are your big body guys, and they're not using them properly. So I go back to my point earlier. I think this has a lot to do with play calling still. They haven't figured out how they want to run they figured out how they want to run it. They have to run it through Zeke, and they know that. But they haven't figured out the X's and O's around that to make it work.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just think that the Cowboys are still adjusting to not having Bryant on the roster, and they're going to have to come up with something here pretty soon. Otherwise, their season's going to go down the drain really quick.
So let's move on around the NFL, guys. I want to talk about something that's really amazing. The Cleveland, another heart attack, another thriller going to overtime again. They ended up beating the Ravens 12-9 in overtime thanks to that rookie kicker they've got, Greg Joseph. At Miami actually cut him earlier in the year, and Cleveland picked him up. So what do you guys think about the Browns this season?
Did you see that final kick?
I thought he was going to miss it.
It was good by about 4 feet.
Squirted it right over the edge.
He loves that left post. He absolutely loves that thing.
Yeah. I'll tell you what stood out to me the most, though, is the Baltimore Ravens are a team that a lot of people are considering to be a dark horse in the AFC to make it to the championship game and even the Super Bowl. And the Browns, who are a team that is the biggest wild card in the entire league right now,
Go Browns,
came out and held them to 9 points, which tells me that defense is stout. Exactly. And I think all the people, and I know that I've brought this up on 3 or 4 occasions, but Ward from Ohio State,
that dude is an animal.
There's no reason people should be criticizing him with Cleveland taking him 4th overall. This man is an animal.
I think a lot of that criticism has stopped since his play in the last couple of weeks.
It has to be. And I know his biggest critic is Colin Cowherd, and he also had the Ravens as a dark horse Super Bowl team for the AFC. And I'm really anxious to go back and listen because I know his show's going on right now. And I'm anxious to go back and listen to what he has to say after this game because we know how he feels about Baker Mayfield. And I know Tyson sure as hell knows how he feels about Baker Mayfield. So
threw for over 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. That's a good game.
On that subject, this is a guy that only started in enemy territory 1 time the entire game. 1 time, and was still able to get over 350 yards in the game. That speaks volume in itself. I believe he threw to 7 or 8 different receivers that caught a pass in this game. That's impressive in itself for a rookie quarterback. Jarvis Landry did his thing, of course, and Njoku. Carlos Hyde, as always, He had a pretty decent game, especially against that Ravens defense. I believe they have the first or second run defense in the entire NFL right now.
I want to say second.
Yeah, because the Jags, I think, are number one.
Terrell Suggs is the reason why it's good.
Yeah, it was just, this is a really impressive win for them. Brings them back to 500, slightly above.
2-2-1. So
yeah, slightly above 500 in the tiebreaker. But this was really impressive to me. I felt like they should have won the game last week against the Raiders.
They got hosed by the NFL.
NFL came out and said,
yeah.
So Breakers should have a winning record right now. Let's just keep that in mind.
3-1-1. That's a pretty good record.
Absolutely.
What's amazing to me, that defense is absolutely outstanding. But coming out of last week, where they lost 42-45, both of these teams, the Browns and the Raiders, came out and scored 12 and 10 points respectively. So they put together half of one of their scores from last week. So the offense has struggled a little bit this week. They couldn't punch it in, had a hard time. But they're both playing a little bit different teams. The Raiders going up against the Chargers, who's not really known for their defense.
Yeah, really surprising they were only able to put up 10 in that game.
Yeah. The Raiders have looked subpar almost all year. So last week it might have been a blemish, but I figured they could at least put up a little bit of a fight this week, which they didn't. But the Browns only coming out and scoring 12. Now the Ravens have a much better defense. It's a lot harder to score on. And we saw they were still moving the ball pretty well with Baker, but the run game never really got going. He still finished decently, but the Browns still look incredible. Going up against a dark horse Ravens team, like you mentioned, against Joe Flacco, a Super Bowl winning quarterback, one-time league MVP. To go up against him and compete and put him down and take down the top team in the division right now, that's a great win for Cleveland.
Yeah, let me say one more thing on that. I want to go to overtime real quick at the end of the game. When Cleveland got the ball in overtime and then they immediately get it back to the Ravens, Joe Flacco has a chance to go down the field and win a game like we've seen him do before, and the Cleveland defense shut him down. Mm-hmm. That's what was really impressive to me. And Baker did not squander that second chance to go down and put them in position to get that field goal. That was probably the most important part of that game, was not just them coming out with the win, but that drive at the very end and him getting that second chance and that opportunity to come back and get the win.
Moving on, guys. Green Bay. Good news for Chicago fans. Green Bay is falling apart, and I love it.
They only lost by 8, but it wasn't close for the entire game.
Their kicker, Mason Crosby, which I never thought I'd say this. Mason Crosby missed 5 kicks, I think, on Sunday, correct?
Yeah, 4 field goals and 1 extra point.
Phew, and he just, Gavin's got in the show notes here, he just fell flat on his face. And they lost to the Detroit Lions, who are the bottom garbage dumpster fire of our division. So that being said, what do you guys think of Green Bay? I want to ask you this, Tyson, before you give your opinion on it. Aaron Rodgers' body language just looked bad. He looked like he didn't want to be there. He looked like he was lost, confused, pissed off, everything all in one game. Roller coaster of emotions. So what do you think for Green Bay?
He's literally got no help. Even his kicker, who used to help him, decided he's done too. He doesn't want to help either. I'm just going to give up all this crap. No, don't worry about it. It's okay. He's got no running back. He's got no receivers. He's got 0 offensive line. He's got no defense. They couldn't stop the damn Lions. He's got no kicker, and I'm sure his coach isn't far from halfway out the door either. So he's really got no help. I don't blame him for being half done. He still brought his team back to within 8 points when they were down 17-0 in the first half.
Well, real quick, I think that's because the Lions were playing not to lose instead of trying to win. But
yeah,
that's neither here nor
why
there.
I say it wasn't close the whole game, even though they only lost by 8. They started playing a little lackadaisical, like you said, not to lose instead of playing to win still. So it looks a lot closer than it was, but they got destroyed that entire game. So him being done, getting whooped by the Lions, I don't blame him at all. They need some help around him, or it's going to be a long season.
Yeah, Green Bay, this is a team that people picked to win the division, even though Minnesota is coming back with the same defense they had last year, supposedly better quarterback in Kirk Cousins.
He looked bad, too.
The Bears coming out of nowhere with this defense, easily top 5 in the league, an MVP candidate in Khalil Mack.
Right behind Mahomes.
And now you have a team like the Detroit Lions. Like you said, this is a bottom feeder in our division in the NFC North. Taking out Green Bay. Granted, it was at home, so I gave him a slight advantage there, but this is Aaron Rodgers. This is supposed to be, supposedly, to a lot of people, a lot of analysts, and even fans, the best quarterback in the league right now. And like Tyson said, the man's got no help.
And a bum knee.
The only reason that this Green Bay team was in this game whatsoever is because of that man. There's no reason the Lions shouldn't have won this game 30-0. Mason Crosby, I don't know what the hell happened to him. He must have seen the boogeyman last night before showing up to the Ford Center. But 5 kicks. I tell you what.
I think that's got to be some kind of record.
I've never seen a kicker be responsible for 13 points left on the board ever in my life. That's definitely one hell of a feat. I'm going to have to check the record books on that one. You're absolutely right. But what's going on with Green Bay right now, I really can't say.
Fun fact, the Lions actually beat Green Bay both times last year.
You know what? I think I'm just now remembering that.
They beat them. They were 2-0 against the Packers last year.
So this is 3 wins in a row now.
1-0 against the Packers this year.
3 wins in a row for Detroit, man. That's
Why did we not beat Green Bay?
That's something in itself right there.
Because the Lions are better than. I have no doubt when the Bears play the Lions, it's going to be flipped. It's going to be another one of them 48-12 games or whatever.
Yeah, I really have nothing else more to say on this other than I rarely do I ever see that it's a kicker's fault. The entire game.
That's hard not to blame that.
Like the entirety of the game on his shoulders is completely his fault. But this is it. This is the first time I've ever seen it. I can understand it coming down to crunch time, and you got to kick a 50-yarder for the win. And if you miss, well, maybe the team should have done something else so they didn't put you in that situation. Although that is what you're getting paid for. That's a story for a different day. Last thing I got to say about this: first time I've ever seen a kicker have this kind of responsibility put on them, and they come up short. It's crazy.
Last thing I want to talk about is the Kansas City Chiefs took it to the Jags.
They didn't just beat them by a little bit. They stomped them.
30-14. That's unreal. Nobody can stop Patty Showtime, Patty Mahomes.
He didn't even throw a touchdown this week, did he?
No, he didn't throw a touchdown. He didn't have to. He didn't throw a touchdown. Jalen Ramsey and Tyreek Hill, that was the matchup of the century. I don't know what better matchup you could have possibly gotten this Sunday than Jalen Ramsey and Tyreek Hill. Jalen Ramsey ran out of gas in that third quarter. Tyreek Hill was just burning him the entire game, and it was
cheetah.
It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Jalen Ramsey was so tired they were lining him up against Kareem Hunt to go cover him at
a corner against a running back.
Yes, that was how tired he was. But no, I'm glad. I'm right behind the Bears. As you guys know, I'm not that big of a football guy other than the Bears. I'm pulling for the Chiefs. I love this Chiefs team and Andy Reid because I know he's going to blow it probably starting next week because he started off 5-0, and this is typical Andy Reid.
This is something I thought I would never, ever say in my entire life, but could you imagine a Rams-Chiefs Super Bowl? That's got to be the coolest damn thing I've ever heard in my life.
What's really funny is that being that they are in separate conferences, I think that the talent level between the top, which is where they are, and then the second best is, it's miles. They're miles apart from their competition. So could it be in the future? Possibly.
Yeah, imagine if they could have Earl Thomas this week too.
I'm pretty sure they play each other this season as well, don't they? In the regular season.
I don't know.
I'll look it up.
I could be wrong, but if they do, I would really hope that they both stay undefeated because
little Super Bowl pre-show.
Yeah, that would be something to watch. Because
these teams are above and beyond the best teams in their leagues right now. There's no doubt about it.
They play the Rams in L.A. on November 19th.
So there you go. Mark your calendars.
That's a little over a month.
Monday night, I believe.
Very nice.
No, it's Thursday night. Thursday night.
Oh, so they'll be wearing the
on November 19th.
Probably them yellow uniforms. Oh man, I can't stand those.
Yeah, they're gonna take it to the Chiefs, the Rams. Excuse me.
Oh yeah, they'll have Talib back. They'll have Peters back for that game. So that should definitely be
fun.
Peters did play in that game this week against.
He did.
Whoever he got burnt bad once for a touchdown.
He must not
thought he could jump it, and he threw it about 10 yards over his head to the guy standing behind him, and he looked like a second-year player.
Let me go to the score real quick. It says 30-14, but Jacksonville didn't score till the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So let's make that clear. This was a wallop.
The boat did not look very good.
No, not although he did.
Did you see him bank that pass off his own lineman's helmet?
Down on the goal line, yeah. But hey, I tell you what, his highlight for the game was that little run he had down there at the corner pylon. That was see him stretch out for that one.
Yeah.
Old Bortles.
I still couldn't. I laughed so hard when they showed that replay. And they were banking that football off his own lines.
Which is funny because he's not going to get credited as that interception being his fault because it was
he threw it right at his head.
It was a deflection, even though it was his fault. But I'll tell you what. Let's just go ahead and move on here.
Oh, sorry. The other one thing I wanted to touch on, we talked about it a little bit in the Illini game, bringing pressure. We saw it in the Cowboys game a little bit. I forgot to touch on this. The Cowboys blitzed on almost 0 plays. When Deshaun Watson finally threw his interception, they brought a blitz. Jalen Smith came off the edge. It freed up Greg Hardy. They hit Deshaun Watson again for the however many time that game, and he threw a pick. And that was the only time that I saw them bring pressure that entire game, and they got him to throw an interception. So the Cowboys, again, need to bring some pressure. Their defense is still doing great. Absolute studs out there, especially with all those goal line stands yesterday. But we see what pressure can do to help them, and I think the Illini, touching back on them, they're in the same boat. They need to bring more than 4 guys at least every now and then just to switch it up, just to give them a little bit of added pressure, just to make the offenses make some mistakes.
Real quick before we move on, now that you brought that back up, I need to ask the question, are you surprised that the Rams defense is doing so well with Wade Phillips being the defensive coordinator down there?
No, absolutely not. Wade Phillips is a phenomenal defensive coordinator. He's a great head coach. He's a better defensive coordinator. There's no doubt about that. He's an absolute stud. He knows exactly what to call, when to call, and how to call it, and he's not afraid to make risky calls. And that's what I liked about Wade Phillips is he wasn't afraid to blitz. He's not afraid to bring some pressure from some weird spots, to do these weird stunts. He's basically getting the best out of his players. And the Cowboys are afraid to do that right now. Everybody's on an island. That was the Cowboys' first pick of the season.
Surprising that comes 5 games in.
Yeah, that shows that they're not bringing enough pressure. And that's something the Cowboys have always struggled with, is getting interceptions. But you can't get interceptions if you can't make the quarterback throw the ball funny.
All right, let's move on here real quick before we get into the MLB playoffs. Sticking with the football theme here, we need to talk about Central Illinois football. This was a really bad week for me, so if we could get through this segment fairly quickly, that would be nice. Tyson, go ahead.
Yeah, it was a pretty rough week. We started off the week with Centennial against Lincoln Way Central. Lincoln Way Central won 28-0. We all picked that one pretty easy. This one came a little bit of surprise. Peoria against Central. Central ended up winning 21-20. Close game. We all took an L on that one. That starts our rough week off right there. Richwoods against Urbana, another easy pick, 17-0. Urbana falls again to 0-7. Rantoul went up against Bloomington Central Catholic. That's right. They lost, or Rantoul won 42-28. The first week I have picked Rantoul, and they did not disappoint.
Fly Eagles fly.
Yes, sir.
STM went up against Unity. We all hopped on the STM train, go Sabres, and they let us all down. 22-17, lost by 5 points to Unity, a Unity team that had not won a game. So that's a little disappointing. There continues the rough week for all of us. This is where it started to crumble a little bit. Gavin started taking a couple hits here. Our next game up was Bismarck Henning 6-0 against Oakwood, who was sitting at 2-4, and Oakwood won 42-33.
Unbelievable.
Very
man.
Surprising win. A great win for an Oakwood team that is not. We said they had an opportunity. They've played several close games this year, but I didn't think it was actually going to happen. But good win for Oakwood. We all took another L on that one. Argenta against Arcola. Gavin went with Arcola in this one, and they ended up losing 22-9. Just couldn't get the offense together. Argenta moves on, stays undefeated in the season. Warrensburg Latham against Tuscola. Gavin, the only one taking Tuscola this time.
I finally got one.
Yeah, Tuscola coming out against 6-0 Warrensburg Latham, 35-21, beat them by 2 touchdowns in Warrensburg. That is a very good win for that Tuscola team.
I'm about 1-17 in games. I disagree with you guys now.
Yep. It's hard to tell a 5-1 team that they needed a win, but man, they really needed that one.
Yeah, Warrensburg Latham, like I touched on Friday, I think they were either the number 1 or number 2 team in Division 2A.
Yeah.
So beating that team, that's outstanding. That definitely jumps them back up in the rankings from, I think they were sitting at 6th or 7th back up to 1 or 2. It's hard to argue with that now. PBL fell to Clifton Central. Cale took Clifton in this one. We did not. A game that I thought PBL could finally come out and beat this Clifton team that we have struggled against for so long, and they let me down 34-13. Once again, Clifton Central's defense just looked too strong. They moved to 5-2 on the season. PBL moves to 5-2 as well. And our last game of the week was Monticello against Pontiac. Gavin went with Pontiac on this one. Me and Cale took Monticello, And this was the point we argued on Friday. Monticello's offense just looked too strong. Put up 42 points on this Pontiac team. 42-14 was the final. So that put our records. I was 5-5 on the week. Gav was 4-6, and Cale was 6-4. So it was pretty close. Cale taking this week by a game. Gavin losing this week by a game. But the overall records now stand: Cale in first place, 52-18. I'm at 51-19, and Gavin is sitting at 44-26.
You were so close to getting 50.
Hold down the bottom, boys. Holding it down.
If I had to ask you guys one thing, what was the most surprising game to you guys this week?
PBL Clifton Central game.
Oh, heck, Oakwood, man. I couldn't believe that, to be honest.
I'm going to have to still take that PBL Clifton Central game. I agreed with you. PBL probably should have won that game, but Central just proves to be too strong, and it's like a curse every time we play Central. We just can't beat them.
Honestly, if I was going to be completely honest, though, St. Thomas more. Just
the unity.
Just the wins that they've had this year so far, and the close ones that they've kept. I mean, getting pretty much shut down by this Unity team. I couldn't believe that.
What'd you say the score of that was?
22-17.
That's still not a Unity win either.
No, 17 points after scoring 40 and 40 back-to-back, or 38, I think, but almost 40 points in back-to-back weeks. That was the thing that jumped out to me the most.
I just want to know what happened to Unity football. Like, this is 1-6?
We got some breaking news, boys. This is from Bleacher Report. Jay Ajayi tore his ACL in Eagles practice today, and he will be placed on season-ending IR.
Ouch.
I don't even know who they've got at running back anymore.
No, LeGarrette Blount's gone. He's with Detroit now.
Yep.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, who do they have?
Nick Foles.
They put Nick Foles in? Wow, okay.
I'm assuming that's not going to work out the way it's worked out for the Steelers either.
No, probably not.
Man, could you imagine the Eagles going for Le'Veon Bell right now?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. That's something.
That's an offer that'd be hard to refuse, I think.
Yeah, that's something to think about. All right, well, now that we're past that, because that was a really, really bad week that I would like to forget, hopefully we'll try to bring it back on Friday. Let's talk about some MLB playoffs, boys. Milwaukee Brewers, the Brew Crew, they swept the Colorado Rockies. Can't say I'm surprised. Whatsoever.
No, as soon as the Rockies at that game against the Cubs, I think we all basically said it. They can't put up enough runs.
Absolutely.
The Rockies or the Brewers are hot.
Well, and as Cale says here on the show notes, he has nothing else to say about that. But he is picking the Milwaukee Brewers to win the World Series. I believe that's your call. So.
Over the Red Sox.
As moderator for this segment, I have to ask why.
They're hot, man. Baseball, as Tyson knows, is a sport about who gets hot when. The Red Sox have been hot all season. They've had some struggles against the Yankees with the Red Sox. Kind of bad bullpen, I will say. It's not bad. It's very subpar compared to the rest of the roster they have. So therefore, I feel like Josh Hader single-handedly, and though it's kind of rough to say, is going to win some tough games, come into some tough spots, and pull through for the Brew Crew.
Careful now. They said that at the All-Star game. They said, hey, this guy hasn't been scored on all year, and he went in there against the AL team and let up a home run on like his third pitch.
Yeah, that's another thing too. I understand that, but I feel like against he's going to end up playing the Dodgers, honestly.
Yep.
Because Fultonevich for the Braves tonight's not that good. I'll talk about that in just a second. But no, I just feel like the Brewers are hot. They're just too hot. They're like the 2016 Cubs. The Cubs got hot at the right time at the end of the year, and that's exactly what the Brewers did, and they're just carrying the momentum.
Well, speaking of a sweep, it's looking like the Astros are going to take care of business against the Cleveland right now. So, with that said, let's just go ahead and call it. Yeah, we all picked Houston to sweep Cleveland in this one.
Why are we playing a playoff game at 1:30 in the afternoon?
Yeah,
I don't understand that. It's because of Monday Night Football. That's the only because the Dodgers and the Braves play at 3:30.
Yeah, the game's going on right now, top of the third inning.
I don't understand that. It's got to be because of Monday Night Football.
I mean, there was baseball games being played last night during football and stuff, so I don't see what's different about Monday than Sunday.
It must be something lined up with NBC Sports or something that they need the airtime. I'm not sure. I don't do television. We're just a few guys sitting in a room talking on a couple microphones.
I mean, you got to think though, your average person doesn't get off work till between 3 and 5, so you're playing a game at 1:30. No one's
it's also Columbus Day, so a bunch of kids got the day off.
Yeah, you're right.
So parents having to take the day off.
Whoops.
I'm the only nerd that has to work on Columbus Day.
Hey, don't worry, I had to too. You know. University rules. I don't get that day off. But with that said, let's talk about the Braves taking a game from the Dodgers. The Dodgers now lead 2-1.
Freddie Freeman.
Yep. So let's go ahead and hear it, Cale.
Freddie Freeman with a nuke.
I told you, Freddie Freeman and the boys.
Did you see that hit? Oh my! He must have hit that thing 3,000. I don't even think that thing's landed yet. I guarantee that thing's still going. And then Acuna Jr. hitting that grand slam and very early in the game. They held on.
Was that in the first inning he hit that grand slam?
Yeah.
Very early in the game.
First inning early. So that put them up 4-0 right there, and then they scored 2 more in the same inning, and then Freddie Freeman comes back out, and I think it was the 8th, I want to say, and just hits a moonshot, and it still ain't landed yet. I'm going to stake my claim on that. But it doesn't really matter, though. That's sad to say. I like Freddie Freeman. I always have. He's done amazing things for the Braves organization. But I don't think they're going to be able to pull it out today against the Dodgers. Fulton-Nevich has kind of teetered on that fine line on the fence this season. Maybe he can prove me wrong. Maybe the Braves can come back, coming down 2-1, so come back and win a 3-2 series. Who knows?
If they're going to have to come out very hot.
They're going to have to score. Yeah, they got to score first.
They may not need a home run, a grand slam in the first inning again, but they're going to need 2-3 runs by the end of the second, third inning.
As of right now, it's the third inning, either the top or the bottom. I don't know. I just checked it a couple minutes ago. The Dodgers are leading 1-0. So very close game still, very winnable game.
Still a lot of time left.
Winnable.
We'll have to see if they're able to pull it out and force that game 5 with a chance to go to the championship. With that said, though, the most exciting series so far, and I think I called it as well as a lot of other people, Boston, New York. Heated first two games.
We said this was going to be the only one that went about 5 games.
Absolutely. Chris Sale coming out, speaking to the media. He has no respect for the New York Yankees whatsoever.
Don't blame him.
And the Yankees have no respect for the Boston Red Sox. Are you surprised? Absolutely not. But out of these first 2 games, what are your guys' biggest takeaways?
Boston's too strong. Chris Sale being able to throw a 97 to 101 mile an hour heater whenever he wants. Following that up with a 91 mile an hour changeup, you can't hit that. You can't on a 91 mile an hour changeup. You can't pick up that rotation as to what that ball is. And not only that, they got David Price, who looked he was kind of shaky the other night. He did let up 3 runs, but that was also on an Aaron Judge 2-run shot. So you can't really be too upset with that because you got the Bronx Bombers and Judge and Stanton, along with Didi, who's back. He is back. Didi's back, and Gleyber Torres with McCutcheon.
Gleyber Torres has had a rough series so far.
That whole Yankees roster is just as good as the freaking Boston Red Sox, though. I don't understand it. I told my parents, I was sitting with them watching that game a little bit the other day. I think it was Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. I said that whoever is going to win that series is going to be in the World Series. There's just no doubt about it. We've called that already, whether it's the Yankees or the Red Sox. So, yeah, that's my key takeaway is I don't know. I don't have a prediction yet.
Well, and when we were making our picks a week and a half ago, me and Cale picked the A's, and we said the A's didn't stand a chance against the Red Sox. We said if the Yankees did come out with it, that was the only team that could compete with them, and we're seeing that. The Yankees can compete, but I still think the Red Sox just look too strong. Even in their loss, it looks like they could have won it basically at any time.
If that series does go to a Game 5, Boston's going to pitch Chris Sale on short rest.
Oh, yeah.
And he don't care. He can pitch 101 consistently on 3 days rest or 2 days rest. It don't matter with that guy.
Yeah, but that's about all I got. I think the Red Sox will definitely still take it. We'll just have to see where it goes from here.
Moving on, we haven't talked about this in what seems like forever. The NBA, ladies and gentlemen, Gavin, the Spurs, the starting wow. Okay. The San Antonio Spurs starting point guard, DeJounte Murray, I believe is how you pronounce his first name, done for the year with an ACL. I don't want to wish any ill will upon a player. I'm very sad that he does.
Except Odell Beckham.
It does suffer a season-ending ACL injury already, but I am glad that the Spurs may not be in the playoffs.
Well, man, that kind of hurts, bro. My boy is on that team.
Who's going to start for DeJounte Murray, though?
Well, it's probably going to be Patty Mills or Patrick Mills, however you want to call him. This is a guy who's a savvy veteran. He's been in the league for at least a decade now. Scrappy guy because he's from Australia, from the land down under, mate, you know. But no, this guy for real. Was it really, though?
I don't know.
We're just going to go ahead and move forward with that. Take it for what you will. Patty, I love you, man, if you ever listen to this. But like I said, he's been a backup point guard for, forever. Those days with Tony Parker there in San Antonio. We know the Spurs let him go to the Charlotte Hornets. They're probably missing him right about now. They also cut Brandon Paul. Shout out to Illinois for him in the offseason. Did not pick up his option for the year. So they're going to need to sign somebody. Patty's going to have to either be the backup to whoever they sign, or he's going to have to take over the duties. My biggest concern is, can Patrick Mills play 30-plus minutes a game consistently, 82 games out of the year?
Popovich.
Well, there's that as well. It's going to be interesting. Probably DeMar is going to have to inherit a lot of the ball responsibility on the offensive side. LaMarcus Aldridge is going to have to become the first option. I mean, DeJounte Murray, we know he's a slasher, but with him gone, that pretty much opens the floor. You got LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan, then those are your two options right there. Rudy Gay is going to have to step in, be your third guy, may have to take over some of the ball handling responsibilities as well. But do I think that this hurts their playoff chances? I think slightly. I still think DeJounte Murray was either the second or third option going down the floor, so losing a guy like that, it definitely hurts, but you still have two All-Stars on your team, and you can definitely make it in the West with that.
DeRozan, honestly, though, Gavin, wouldn't be that bad if he handled the ball, right? I mean, honestly,
no,
it's
absolutely
not that bad of a
no.
situation.
No, it's not. It's not. I think DeMar can be a ball handler, but when he played alongside Kyle Lowry for so many years, not only his best friend, but he's a heck of a point guard as well. He's made the All-Star team 3 separate times. Just DeJounte he wasn't a shooter like Kyle was. We know Kyle Lowry's he has the 3-point shot. He's 32, 33 years old. He's been around. He played with the Grizzlies, the Rockets. He's been with a few teams now. DeJounte Murray's young. He's raw. I'm interested to see if the Spurs will allow Lonnie Walker to handle the ball a little bit more, if he'll get a little bit more playing time now that Murray's down. But I will not be surprised. They're going to have to sign somebody because they have to fill that roster spot. Mm-hmm. But getting back to your original question, should DeMar, or is this bad for DeMar to get the ball, or is it a positive thing for the Spurs? If anything, I think this is a good thing. That's an unbiased opinion. DeMar,
what bad can happen from putting the ball in his hands more often? Nothing really.
A few more mid-range shots
right.
from the elbow, but
exactly.
nothing crazy.
Right, so you just get DeMar more points a game. I don't really see anything bad if he does touch the ball more often. It's like if LeBron touches the ball 5 more times a game, is that good or bad? It's good.
Well, and let's not compare DeRozan to LeBron James.
Right, I'm not making that comparison, but you have a great player on your team. Is it good or bad to have him get the ball more times than not?
Well, and let's not forget about his last season in Toronto with Coach Casey changing the offense to be more assist-orientated instead of isolation ball. Yeah, they used to run isolation ball at the top of the key between Lowry and DeRozan, no screens, just everyone get out of the way and let us go to work. That last season, DeRozan had a career high in assists, averaging almost 6 a game, which was very impressive for a guy that's an isolation player. Let's call it for what it is. But he's very efficient from inside as well as mid-range, still working on the 3-point shot, but also career high in 3-point percentage in his last year with the Raptors before being traded. Damn you, Masai Ujiri. But with that said, I think the Spurs are still in good shape. They should be fine the rest of the season.
Dirk Nowitzki, guy we all 3 of us in this room have watched growing up for the Mavs this season. He's going to miss the opener in Dallas due to a injured foot that he had surgery on in April, correct?
Yeah.
So what's that mean for Dallas this season?
Well, he already accepted the bench role, so I think that they had their starting lineup set, but other than fan service, really, I mean, he's the 21st season.
Dude's old.
Yeah,
he's been playing longer than we've been alive.
He's going to be 40. He's going to be 40 here. It's his 21st season. Well, except Cale, I guess.
Yeah,
they'd be around the same time.
He was drafted when I was 2.
But no, he's he's a legend, and people are going to pay to want to come and see Dirk in Dallas and anywhere else he goes. I think he's verbally stated that this will be his last season. You could quote me on that.
If he hadn't said it, I think it's pretty easy to see that. He's definitely getting old. His last couple of years, we've seen a steady digression. He has slowly gotten not worse and worse, but you can see that age is really taking its effect on him. And he had a surgery in April. He's had 6 months to recover from a foot surgery.
Yeah.
I get it. Your foot's a pretty vital part in running and jumping. And yeah, but
really,
you can't tell me a 22-year-old guy wouldn't have healed up and been back on the court 2 months ago.
Right.
So we can definitely start to see it wear down on Dirk, wearing down on his body. He's had an incredible career is what I was saying. An incredible career.
6th all time in scoring.
But I think we're finally starting to see it wind down.
Man, yeah, it is sad to see your legends just start aging, and we saw it with Kobe Bryant a few years ago after he ruptured his Achilles.
Injury after injury.
Yeah, and hopefully we don't see that with DeMarcus. Well, actually, I wouldn't mind seeing DeMarcus Cousins sit out the rest of the season, but that's neither here nor there. Hopefully Dirk comes back. I don't want him to miss too much of this season, mostly because I know he wants to play for the fans. He just came back from a trip over in China. And they go nuts for those guys over there. The early 2000s NBA legends, like LeBron, D Wade, Tracy McGrady, Dirk Nowitzki, these guys, they go nuts for them overseas. So I really appreciate that he's involved in the community. I just hope that he can play the majority of this season. But with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our final topic here. The NHL season is upon us. It's the second time in a row, believe it or not, that we've talked about the NHL.
Let's go.
We got to talk about Cale's 3 stars of the week, and by week I mean weekend. So, Cale, go ahead and take it away, man.
First star comes from that wild game we're going to talk about a little bit here in just a second. Third star, Alex DeBrincat, defenseman for the Chicago Blackhawks. Nets his second goal of the season. That's a good thing for Chicago. The reason why he's on there, non-biased, is because he needs to wake up and score with that line that he's on with Jokiharju Jokiharju, Cam Hayden, and I can't remember the center on that line. Marcus Kruger, I believe, is on that line with him as well. But we're going to talk about the verdict of that game in just a second. Number 2, Paul Byron. He's netted two more in that game for Montreal in their 5-1 rout over the Pens. Anybody that can beat the Pens, especially the Canadians, with Paul Byron and Carey Price, has got respect in my book because I cannot stand Sidney Crosby. Number 1, first star of the weekend, I'm going to go give it to Jamie Benn, a guy that thought he wasn't going to be in Dallas. He's the front runner on this Dallas team. He is the John Tavares, the Austin Matthews, or Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane to the Dallas Stars. He nets 2 in a 5-1 win over the Winnipeg Jets, who are projected 14-1 odds. They have 14-1 odds to win the Stanley Cup this season with Patrick Laine, Connor Hellebuyck, and Dustin Byfuglien. So those are my 3 stars for this weekend. 3 takeaways, the 3 notable players. First thing I want to talk about is that wild game that we had last night. This room is divided 2-1 on the verdict. The Hawks and the Leafs, Tyson Snyder's Hawks versus your Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, that game, it was just back and forth the entire game. Back and forth.
One of the most fun hockey games to watch that I've seen in a while.
That is the best game we're going to see all season until these 2 teams play each other again. That's just how it's going to be. Because you got 2 front runners. Well, the Maple Leafs are obviously, they're 4-1 favorites to win the Stanley Cup this season. And the Blackhawks, I believe, are 7-1 or 14-1. So, but once we get Crow back, that'll change, obviously. Once you guys get your goaltender situation, that's going to do nothing but go down.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on the goaltender situation because I know you and me were talking about this right before the game started when Frederik Andersen was put on the bench for Sparks, our rookie that came in and defended the net against the Blackhawks.
Yes, he went up 6.
You said you were very impressed. I watched the goalie highlights of that game, and I can't say the same. I was very concerned. I saw potential. I saw flashes of greatness from him. I understand it's just one game, but I need to see consistent play, and I need to see this in a few more samples before I give my cemented opinion on this. I understand that he's young and he's a rookie, but I don't think that Andersen has played worse than this on a consistent basis. I need to see more from him before I can definitively say that he is a better option or an alternative option to Andersen. And I understand where you're going to go with this and say that this is the biggest problem that we have.
It is.
And I understand that, but I don't see why you would change something if it's worse. You understand 6 goals is a lot. And I know Tyson was talking to me about this as well before we started this. No goalie you want to see give up 6 goals, and that was the biggest red flag for me.
You can give up 6 goals if you can score 7 like the Leafs did.
Right, but we shouldn't have to do that.
To score 7 to win a game.
My thing is that Andersen lost to the Ottawa Senators. That's why he got the start against the Blackhawks, because if he's going to lose to the Senators, what's he going to do against Patty Kane and the Blackhawks? And that's the reason why I'm still saying don't give up on this kid yet. Give up on Andersen, because for the sheer fact that in 43 seconds in the third period, I see 2 things. Patty Kane. That's the reason why you don't give up on him. Patrick Kane, honestly, non-biased, is the best player, best winger to study goaltenders. That's all he does is study goaltenders and their habits. That's the reason why I'm saying don't give up on this guy.
It's because he wants to score. He's one of the best pure scorers in the league.
Him and
that's what he's there for.
Well, see, that is what I agree with, because before I started watching hockey when the Blackhawks were in the Stanley Cup finals and they won those 3 cups, I tuned in and I watched those teams, so I know exactly who Kane is. But what I want to say is what it comes down to for me is I just need a bigger sample size. I'm not saying that this kid can't get it done, because I believe that he can, but he's young. And what I'm saying is if you just sit him behind Anderson for the rest of the season, I understand what our odds are, but just let him learn. I think Anderson is okay for right now, unless he screws up tremendously. I understand he let up 5 against Ottawa, and that's believe me, that's bad. That's really bad. But give it some time, and if worse comes to worse, then I don't see why you wouldn't be able to make the change. But just I would say put the brakes on for now.
Obviously, the Leafs did win that game 7-6 in overtime thanks to Riley's
19 seconds in.
Yep, Cam Ward just that puck took a bad bounce on Cam Ward. You can't really.
We won the face-off and lost in 19 seconds.
It's because I don't know what happened other than the puck took a bad bounce for Cam Ward that he just obviously couldn't corral it, and it just 5-holed him. So.
Well, I think your problem was Crawford wasn't in the game. But
Crawford's not going to be in the game for another week or two either because of that concussion that he's dealing with. So I would rather Crawford sit on the bench until he's healthy, because this guy, I really wish we didn't trade him for Scott Darling for this guy. But that's water under the bridge. We can't do much about it now other than get Darling back in the net for us. One thing I want to talk about, too, Jonathan Quick, speaking of goaltenders, is placed on the injured reserve list with his left knee, something he's getting a little up there in age, something he's been battling with the last couple of years. There goes my fantasy team, because I have Ante Aranta as my backup for the Coyotes. He did get me a few points the other night. He did stop, I think, 31 of 36 shots, so he did get me a point or two. Carolina, though, the last game I want to talk about, Carolina is a sleeper pick this year. They beat the Rangers in the Garden, in the MSG, 8-5 this weekend. Scott Darling did let up 5, but at the same time, his boys scored 8.
Talk about putting up some goals. That's a lot.
Taylor Hall is the MVP of last season. He's probably he's in the favorites to win it again, right behind Tavares and Patrick Kane of the Chicago Blackhawks. Last thing I want to talk about, sorry, I'm just kind of rambling.
No, you're fine, man.
Caps, Tom Wilson, as we saw in the preseason. We haven't talked about it yet. He had that nasty, brutal hit on Oscar Sundqvist. Wow. Sundqvist of the St. Louis Blues in preseason. He ended up getting 20 games out of that. The Caps came out and stated that it is a garbage suspension. I've never heard a team come out and say that, but I can't disagree with them. And Tom Wilson is going to appeal it. Whether that appeal process is through and over with or is even started by the time his 20 games is up, who knows? NHLPA is going to have to get everything in motion to get it appealed. The guy that is running the case, though, the appeal hearing, I will say, he is not very lenient on appeals. He may give him a game or two and may lessen his fine. He just signed a $5 million contract, but got fined for that hit $1.2 million, so he will not be receiving a paycheck this year. That's kind of hurt. That kind of hurts a little bit. But no, Tom Wilson, that hit. I will say this, in the preseason, that hit is not needed. That's the only thing I will say about it. Another thing I want to tell Sundqvist is to keep his head up in the middle of the ice. But as you can see, the NHL is severely cracking down on these hits this year.
I just want to say one thing before we wrap it up is I'm really surprised that you didn't have John Tavares on this back-to-back.
He's on the notables.
Yeah.
He's on my notables.
Got that hat trick against the Chicago Blackhawks.
Took him 3 games.
But, hey, that's my boy now, right next to Austin Matthews.
Who's higher on your list, Matthews or Tavares?
Oh, Jesus, Austin Matthews, man. That's I said that last week, man. The whole reason I started watching hockey was that boy right there.
I can't believe we didn't talk about Jonathan Taves yet. 4 goals, 9 assists. That's 13 points in 3 games. That's over 4 points a game, which is over 300 points for the season.
Yep.
If he keeps up that streak, which is a very highly unattainable to achieve over 4 points a game. But imagine if he even halves that. 2 points a game, finishes with 160, 180, 200 points. That's an insane season.
You want to take a crack at who he's tied with for goals?
For goals?
Yeah, for goals.
Austin Matthews.
So somebody on that team, though.
Jonathan Tavares.
Bingo.
They both got 4 this season. Because
So
with
far.
that hat trick that Tavares had last night, tied him with Jonathan Taves.
Any idea what Crosby's at so far, point-wise, for the season?
Point-wise.
Because he's always up there in the top.
I don't think he's that high because I don't think he's netted one yet this season. But I know he does have 3 assists, so I think he is sitting at 3 points.
Okay.
It's only their 3rd game.
But
give him some time.
what we're getting at is Taves has a little bit of a lead here starting off quick. So.
It's always them
Yeah,
two
for
every
sure.
year.
Yep.
and Tavares, but
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on how good Taves has been.
Well,
so
it'll
far.
be interesting this year with Tavares playing alongside Matthews to see if he can continue that and how well that they'll split the load, especially on the offensive side. But
you got Tavares on line one or Matthews on line one and flip-flop them. It don't matter. Somebody's scoring on them lines, those two lines.
well, yeah, but if it comes down to crunch time, you got to have them both out there at the same time.
Well, yeah, they'll
we'll
flip
see.
the lines.
We'll see what happens. But all right, we need to wrap it up. This has probably been going on a little too long, but that's going to do it for us today. If you like what you heard, make sure to leave a comment or a rating in the box below. Also, make sure to hit that big red subscribe button and click the bell icon next to it so you guys never miss a beat. Also, make sure to follow us on our social media on Twitter at sports_twin. With that said, my name is Gavin Campbell. That was Tyson Snyder, Cale Fleming, and we will see you guys next time.
Peace.
You can't have too much trouble, so why can't we do it? Everybody's doing it. Let's start the fireworks, stand back and